Okay, here we go. So, I'd like to now reconvene and announce closed action. We'll now, let's see, Ms. Amanda, City Attorney, will you please report on closed session action?
There was one item on the closed session agenda. The council received a report and gave direction to its labor negotiators, and that ends the closed session report.
Okay. So, the special city council meeting is now adjourned. Call to order. I'd like to now call to order a regular city council meeting. City Clerk Duarte, will you please take roll call?
Councilmember Ashton?
Present.
Councilmember Frometa?
Present.
Councilmember Saab?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Pacheco?
Present.
And Mayor Rodriguez.
Here. Okay. Let's see do the vocation. Please rise.
Just in time.
So please join me now to do the invocation. Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for this evening, this time, Lord, in this place. Lord, we pray you go before us and guide us and direct us, Lord. Lord, we pray that you give us wisdom for decisions for our city. We thank you for our police and our fire and our many city employees. Lord, we ask that you constantly watch over us and bless this city in Jesus' name. Amen. I'd now like to call Danielle Livuanos and Juliana Fonseca for a flag salute. Did I say it right?
Over there.
The microphone right there. Step up to the mic. There you go. Ask you to put your hand on your heart. There you go.
Hands over your heart.
There you go.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job, ladies. Good job. Okay. Let's have some announcements and councilmember announcement requests for future agenda items and conference meeting reporting out. We'll start with my big little brother to my left, Councilman Alex Saab.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome, everyone. Nice to see young faces in the audience. Welcome. For those who may not know, there's agendas in the back, and there's a QR code. You can scan it with your phone, take a picture if you have an iPhone, and it'll download the agenda. You can follow along so you don't fall asleep. So anyway, welcome. Summer's starting to wind down. It's been a nice summer. I'm sure you've seen all the activity going on in the city. I know that some of you guys play at Independence Park, and I know you're going to see a lot of positive changes there, but know that our parks they're coming along little by little, but by this time next year, most of it will be done, and we're going to have a major facelift here in the city. Just a couple events coming up. I want to invite everybody. Tomorrow our chief is fire chief will be speaking at the Chamber of Commerce at 12 o'clock. Everyone is welcome. Chamber of Commerce is right here across from the theater. He'll be giving some updates on fire department, and I know he always does a fine job. Thank you, Chief, for always doing a fine job. And also tomorrow afternoon at Wilderness Park, if you haven't driven by, the lake there is all drained, and we'll be doing some updates there, some changes to that lake, and drainage should come up real nice. So we're doing a groundbreaking tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Everyone's invited. And then also on Thursday, we'll be doing a groundbreaking at Golden Park. We'll be making some changes there as well. And then just a reminder, the Space Center will be closed this week, September 3rd through the 6th for some staff training and some updates there. And then lastly, I want to leave some of the events for my council members to announce. Next week, I know our mayor will definitely be there. There will be a ribbon cutting for the KFC. That's one of his favorite fast food restaurants. Next Wednesday at noon. That's over on Firestone, just west of Paramount. And then for staff, I wanted to see if we can maybe revisit our ordinance and more specifically our penalties for graffiti. I know we've looked at it a few years when I first got on the council, but if we could just maybe look at it, there was an incident that was a little bit appalling this past week, and I just think we need to, continue to do what we can as far as graffiti penalties are concerned. So if maybe we could just take a look at that and see if there's anything we could put a little bit more teeth into it. It would be great. And that concludes my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Wow, quick and precise. So cutting fingers off is not an option. All right, just checking. So now moving on to Councilmember Claudia Frometa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. It's always so nice to see young people in the audience. I know you're here because you're going to be recognized, and that will happen a little bit later in the program, but it's so nice to see families. And I say this every time, and will continue to say it. Strong communities are engaged communities. And certainly the affairs that happen in our city, it is important. It is so valuable to have you here and hear your thoughts on various issues that are going on. So thank you for being here. The last, as Councilmember Saab mentioned, we've had so much going on in our community over the past several months. And I know that social media sometimes is an avenue for people to express their joys, their concerns, and their heartburn at times. But I do want to remind you that we do have a very robust city website that continues to inform the public about Measure S improvements. And while we have some of our parks closed, we really have tried to stagger them so that some are closed for a certain period of time and that's still closed, but others are moving along. As of last week, we had six groundbreaking ceremonies. And so just think about what is happening in our community, and that a year, 18 months from now, we're going to be unveiling phenomenal new parks, a phenomenal new library, and all of this is for our community. So keep that in mind. I had the pleasure over the last couple of weeks since we last met to attend some events around our city, and I attended Rocket Fever at the Space Center. I don't know if how many of you were aware or familiar, but again, our Columbia Memorial Space Center is really a jewel, and I want to encourage you to check it out, to pay it a visit, and really to get involved. For those young ladies or members in our audience right now who have children who are interested in the STEM program, there's certainly a STEM program there that takes place once a month on Saturdays. And so if you want more information, please look at the website for the Columbia Memorial Space Center. Another thing that we did is I attended the BizFed PAC freshman policy event in Los Angeles. And as Councilmember Ashton mentioned last time we were here, we're both part of the first cohort of the Local Leaders Academy at USC. And this is going on through October, and we are very fortunate to be able to be part of this training. And again, we look for opportunities to serve you better and become better leaders for you, for our community. A couple of neighborhood watch meetings are going to be taking place, one coming up in September, and then another one in October. And again, as was said earlier, summer is winding down, but it doesn't mean that we can't still get together with our neighborhood in our neighborhood watch meetings. So if you have any questions, please see us during one of the breaks, or certainly look at the city website for more information. There will be, for a couple of things for staff that I wanted to bring up, and I know that we brought this up before. There are in our major thoroughfares like Florence and Telegraph and Firestone. We certainly, over the last several months, we've seen some pretty dramatic accidents. And I know that, speed can definitely be a factor, but if we can ask our police chief to really take a look at, particularly the area between the 605 freeway and Paramount on those avenues, Telegraph, Firestone, and Florence, we've seen some really significant traffic collisions. And again, if perhaps we may want to have more patrols and more officers in in those areas during the rush hour. We seem to see high speed vehicles going through there. And also, as school just came back in session 2 weeks ago, another area that we also see, and it's concerning to us, I've received some emails and phone calls from residents in the area of Gallatin Elementary, particularly on Gallatin Avenue between Brookshire and Paramount. Although we do have a cross guard and a crosswalk there continues to be an issue with parents crossing with little ones in the middle of the avenue. And again, sometimes people do not respect the school zone, and so we might want to take a look at that as well. Certainly, we want to keep our community safe, and maybe more patrols in those high traffic areas so that people can get the point that they will be cited if they don't respect our traffic laws. That'll conclude my comments, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to Sean Ashton.
All right. Good afternoon. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see that we all survived almost all of summer now. So that's a great way to kind of think about this next upcoming weekend with Labor Day coming up, and hopefully you enjoy your cookouts or whatever you plan on doing on your extended 3-day weekend. Try to keep things brief here. I know we got a couple events coming up. We've got groundbreakings at Wilderness Park tomorrow at 4 o'clock, and at Golden Park on Thursday at 4 o'clock for some of the Measure S work that we're going to be doing at those parks as well. We do have an event coming up a month from now. So Keep Downey Beautiful is an organization in the city of Downey that does cleanups generally once a month, usually on the third Saturday of each month. So they've usually take a break during the summer. With the cleanup that we do in September, it's their kind of kickoff for the year. So they're out at Rio San Gabriel Park, and we're up going along the riverbed there. So that cleanup will be on Saturday, September 21st. It'll be at 9 a.m., but I do encourage you to get there about 10-15 minutes early, so that way we can get supplies out. And we meet in the north parking lot. So there's like the main parking lot at the south end of the park, and then there's a smaller parking lot at the north end. We meet at the north end, the one that's furthest away from the dog park area there. We have so I had one concern that I want to bring up on top of all the other police issues, Chief, with school starting, and then with some of the issues with the islands on Paramount Boulevard in front of Warren High School. There seems to be a lot of congestion now, and part of that is because parents were used to being able to pull up to the curb along Paramount, even though it was a no stopping zone. Parents would pull up there, drop their kids off, and you would still be able to get 2 lanes of traffic through. But now that we have the islands in, that's kind of congested, but you still have parents kind of doing the same thing. And part of the issue is the school district's doing work on De Palma, so that gate's closed for cars. But if we can just get a patrol out there, just especially during the morning time, to that way, to help keep traffic moving, so it doesn't kind of bottleneck in that area in front of the school, we'd appreciate that. And with that concludes my comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Sean. Moving on to Mayor Pro Tem Blanca Pacheco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to start off with just thanking everyone and welcoming everyone to our City Council meeting. It is always a pleasure seeing everyone, especially our young individuals who are also in attendance. I want to thank and acknowledge Michael Calvert, Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, for being here. Thank you for being here. And also Chad Oberly from Assemblywoman Cristina Garcia's office. Thank you. I also attended several events. One of the exciting events was Rocket Fever on August 17th. It was a great event. Our youth was able to launch rockets. There was music and there was food trucks, so it was a lot of fun. We have this event every year, so if you did not get an opportunity to attend this year, there's always next year. But also exciting news was shared on this day. It is thanks to the Assemblywoman Cristina Garcia that the state has approved $5.8 million to construct a second building at the Columbia Space Center. So this was exciting news, especially for our Space Center here in Downey. Also, on this last Saturday, I had the pleasure of attending Dr. Mary Stauffer's 102nd birthday celebration. Dr. Stauffer has contributed so much to our city of Downey and has helped our school district tremendously. And this means a lot to me, as I am also a product here of Downey Unified School District, so it was a pleasure attending her birthday celebration. And I know several of us were at that event. Our mayor and council member Alex Saab were in attendance. It's just a great event. Upcoming events, we have the ones that were mentioned, but I also did want to mention that the Chamber of Commerce is having their Let's Do Lunch at Rock and Brews on September 5th, next Thursday at noon. And we also have a ribbon cutting. TFL Fitness is having their ribbon cutting on September 9th at 1 p.m. Their address is 7340 Firestone Boulevard, which is on the corner of Old River School Road and Firestone Boulevard. And I wanted to reiterate what Councilwoman from Meta had mentioned about Gallatin Elementary School. I actually also received the same complaints if we could have police officers monitor that area, because I received complaints about illegal parking in that vicinity. So maybe people are just starting to get used to going back to school and they're forgetting the traffic laws. So maybe with a little enforcement, it could be a reminder. So that way we have safe students and safe pedestrians. Also, I wanted to thank Public Works. Recently, near Gallatin Elementary School on Maldar, residents were complaining about potholes. I'm glad to report that that's been remedied, and so we have some very happy residents over on Maldar. And lastly, I want to end with some exciting news. I just heard recently that Downey Adult School was going to be offering free EMT training to our Downey police officers. So that's something extremely exciting. It's still in the works, but it is going to be offered. It's going to be, this was news that was shared to me by the principal, Blanca Roshin. So I know that's in the works, but it is exciting, and I did want to share that. I wanted to acknowledge Downey Adult School for that. And I know all the kinks will be worked out, but that's something that's beneficial to our police officers. So I just want to thank everyone again, and that concludes my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Blanca. So, as usual, I had a pretty busy past few weeks. I'd like to start off with my SIACA. I sit on their board of directors, and as a Joint Power Authority, I'm a member of that board with 7 or 8 other cities. We started a program. We started with our Pets for Troops that's morphed now into a Mayor's Choice, and it's really helped SIACA empty the shelters. So I choose a dog every month. I choose a dog. I spend time with the dog. I walk the dog, take some pictures. I put them on social media. And so far this year, we're 8 for 8. 8 dogs have been Mayor's Choice, been adopted within 24 hours. So I'm excited about that. But I've also encouraged 5 more cities to do the same thing that are on a Joint Power Authority. So that's a great thing for SIACA. So as I mentioned about Rocker Fever, I was there with them at that time. We also did at the Columbia Space Memorial Center, we did a very robust job fair with LA County Department of Mental Health. We had over 133 companies come to our city and offer jobs to people as far as Riverside to the Valley, and it was phenomenal. They did a fantastic job. As well as I spoke at, we have a church in town called Sermon on the Mount. It's the old Moravian church on Old River School Road. They've spent millions of dollars renovating it now, and they've got a new church family in there, and they've asked me to speak on a concept, business as ministry. So I spoke there last week, and I also did an interview with Boston University. They're surveying 700 mayors throughout the U.S., and they selected me to do an interview as part of their survey. And I was able to brag about Downey and all the things we're doing, from our parks to our fire department, police department, our fire stations, our library, and all the things we're doing, our council. And it was very eye-opening for this person that's taking the survey to see how this little city, Southeast LA County, is doing so many great things. I also attended the Dr. Stauffer's 102nd birthday, and I have to tell you, for a lady that is 102 years old, she moves like she's still in her 70s. She still gets around, and she's sharp, and God bless her. She's a matriarch of our city. Last night, we had a visitor to the Courage Forward meeting. We had Congresswoman Lucille Roybal Allard. She came to visit our veterans and talk over veterans and issues, and I was there with them. We were able to actually explain to them certain bills she's trying to pass and get through legislature about veterans, helping veterans and their spouses and things of that nature. So, and then on the heels of that, today I was with her at a National Academy of Science to discuss a roadmap of reducing child poverty. In America, it seems that America is the wealthiest country in the world, but 13% of our American children live under the poverty line. So we can do better than that. And in our city, we're very fortunate that we have a lot of good, caring people in our city. So that's it for me. Let's do some presentations. I'd first like to recognize our Downey Ponytails girls softball. So Alex, you want to join me down there? Give me a hand. So, this summer, Downey Ponytails girls softball 10U gold and many accomplishments. They include 47 wins, first place undefeated in the district, third place in the state championship, first place in the national championship. So please, a round of applause to these young ladies. And we're going to call your name first. I call your name. Then Councilman Saab will pass out. So Lexi Cortez. Mariah Becerra. Isabella Candelas. Giselle Rocha. Jasmine Rivas. Clarissa Noriega. Delilah Navarro. Elisa Munoz. Haley Mares. Samantha Macias. Danielle Luevanos. Haley Hernandez. Juliana Fonseca. Coach Salvador Navarro. Coach Jean Rocha. And then Coach Diana Benitez Luevanos. And Coach Carlos Macias. Diana, would you like to say a few words about your team? Are you the one? Okay. Oh, okay, all right. One of you guys, one of you coaches? All right. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
I want to say thank you guys. I know it was a long summer. We had long practices, almost 3.5 hours. I told the girls, hey, we got to work hard to win, and we accomplished this. And if I was to do it again, I'll do it again.
I thought so. I saw Rivas and then some of the. Okay. Two rows. Good job, girls. Thank you so much. Okay, so now, we have some tree people in the audience? Yes, sir. Carlos Moran, is that you? Yes. All right. Carlos is going to tell us all about the tree program in our city, right?
Yes.
Get a presentation?
I do, yes.
All right.
They're going to put it up.
All right.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
And Eileen Garcia is here with us as well.
Parents, if you guys want to, this is going to be a presentation for trees and stuff. Kids don't have to stay if they don't want to. I know they got school. If you haven't done your homework, if you're not doing your homework, let's go get on it. Look at all this. Wait a minute, you don't all have to leave. Hold on.
I don't know if we can hit a home run like they can. All right, council up here. My name is Carlos Moran. I am the Senior Director of Programs at Tree People.
And my name's Eileen Garcia. I'm the
Can
regional.
you speak closer to the mic, please?
My name's Eileen Garcia. I'm the regional coordinator for Tree People.
And we're here to talk to you today about an exciting program that we have going on to plant over 3,000 trees in your city, to increase the urban forest of your city, to improve the health of your urban forest, and to share with you in a general overview of why this is important, and then kind of go into some project details about this. Not with us today is Juan Solomon, but I do want you to know that he is the project manager and the one that is working very closely with your Public Works team to execute this program. So a little bit about Tree People and who we are. We are one of the oldest environmental organizations in the nation. We are 47 years old. We started with a 15-year-old boy who went up into the mountains over here by the San Bernardino Mountains and realized that they were dying. The trees were dying, and it was because of the smog in the city. They were literally choking the trees to death. He was inspired to plant and kind of really restore the lungs of our city. From that vision and from that initial step, at 18 years old, he convinced the city of Los Angeles to give him a 44-acre park, and that's where Tree People was born. It was born out of the idea of a youth who, like many of these, have big dreams, and he followed it. We are now a team of about 60 professionals. We have 3 core areas to our work. We have our forestry work, which is planting trees in the urban environment, like here in Downey and in the mountains. We restore the ecosystem. We increase not only the urban forest and tree canopy, but also deal a lot with water and water capture features and such. We also have a strong education program where we have about 12,000 kids that come to our site. We work with dozens of schools throughout all of the region. And we have a strong research and policy department that informs our best practices and informs policy not just locally, but statewide, nationally as well. So why is this important to us? It's important to us because we're really realizing that more and more there is climate change is really, what was happening in, 47 years ago when the smog was so bad that it was choking the trees. All that stuff is still happening now, right? Climate change is a reality. It is an urgency for us. This research came out from UCLA, and by the end of the century, right, by the lifespan of about a tree, more or less, we're going to go from 6 extreme hot days, meaning it's 95 degrees or more, to 54. That's a huge range, from 6 to 54 in this region. And if we don't do something about it now, and we don't have mature trees down the road, it's really going to have an impact on community. Those that are most at risk are Latinos and African American communities and the elderly. After a 5th day of it, like a whole week of Monday through Friday, let's say, of it being 95 degrees or hotter, a really hot day, mortality increases. Mortality is literally increased by 50%, about 50%. That's huge. Hospital visits go up. Any illnesses that are happening with someone, they get exacerbated.
Open it, turn on.
Why are those communities more at risk?
For different factors. So they're at risk because of socioeconomic status. They're at risk because of exposure to different environmental pollutants. At risk because of pre-diagnosed health. There's a wide range of factors that are systemic to lifestyle that puts them more at risk. So why is it important for Downey, right? It's important for us to have a stronger, fuller tree canopy because with this expanded tree canopy, you're able to reduce the urban heat islands that are happening in your city. You currently have about an 11% tree canopy coverage of your area. We are working closely with this partner of ours, longstanding partner, who's contracted by your city, Dudek, to inform an urban forestry management plan. It's estimated that we need to increase, in order for Downey to have a healthy urban forest and to mitigate air quality, pollutants, have clean air, and be sustainable and resilient to climate change, you need to increase your tree canopy from 11% to 20%. And these are also mandates that if you want to be able to go for Tree City USA designation to kind of get all these added benefits, you need to invest in your trees and invest in your overall tree canopy. So across the state, there's a big push for an increase in trees because of all the benefits that it brings. But within your city, some of you are familiar with the Gateway Council of Governments, right? And there's a whole plan for climate adaptiveness to get ready for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So, this kind of aligns with not just your regional climate adaptation plans, but also aligns you with state and global and so forth. All right, so now from big picture to project background, and this project specifically, we're funded by Caltrans, essentially. Caltrans is, they needed to offset the carbon footprint from an I-5, Interstate 5 expansion that they had years ago. So since 2012, this project has been in the works. From there, the I-5 Joint Powers Authority, which you're a member city of, is administering this project and these trees. For Downey specifically, you're getting 3,100 trees to be planted by January of this coming January. And these trees are going to be cared for 24 months. So Tree People is contracted, and we're taking the responsibility to engage your residents, engage you, plant these trees, and water and care for them for 24 months. That's our, and really kind of connect community and build cohesiveness, because we know that part of climate adaptation is having connected communities. So we use tree plant. We're not a tree planting organization. Our name, Tree People, bolded, is people. And that's what comes first, and it's all one word. So we're not about trees, we're about people.
The city's in charge of maintaining them?
Exactly. So after 24 months, the responsibility stays on the city, and I think that's just in general outside of this project or whatnot. What we do, and why Eileen is here, is we work to connect with people and establish green teams in the community, in our community forestry program, so that residents themselves are able to leverage their resources, come together, and we train them on tree care so they can have that long-term investment as well. So we try to get residents involved, but the ultimate responsibility, long-term maintenance 10, 15 years from now, does fall on the city like with any other tree project. And part of the urban forestry management plan that is being worked on with one of the other organizations, DUDEC, is to find strategies for that long-term maintenance.
Have all cities in the Gateway adopted it?
Yes.
Every single one of them?
No, not all cities in the Gateway, but all participating cities in the I-5 JPA, which is City of Downey, Norwalk, La Mirada,
In Santa Fe
Santa
Springs.
Fe Springs, and Commerce. Let's see. We have, we're going to be planting in the parkways. That's where most of the trees are going to be going. That's the city right of way.
So that's something I want to ask.
Yeah.
So the parkways, we have a lot of homes in the city that don't have a sidewalk and a
Yeah.
traditional parkway. So how are you guys going to approach that?
Yeah, so we basically, the city has, you have your portion of that, right? You have your easement. So we're planting on the city part of it. Some streets have a sidewalk which divides. That's a clear landmark that shows a difference in responsibility or the lawn. Those that don't have sidewalks, that takes a little bit more engaging and talking with the residents to inform them a little bit about like what's part of the city, what's not, and where we're planting is on the city right of way.
So now let me ask you, what are you doing right now to engage the community as this project is unfolding? We realize and the importance of everything you're saying. Certainly Downey's location in the middle of all these freeways, not just the I-5, and I happen to sit in the Joint Powers Authority I-5 committee, and so we realize that is an important component in the providing oxygenation and photosynthesis, and that's what trees provide. We understand all that, but from the perspective of our community residents, in who is designated to have a tree, who wants one versus who doesn't, and there's plenty of people who would want one, and there's many others that do not. So what are we doing, and how are you engaging them to ensure that these efforts, because we know right now we're all familiar with what's happening in the Amazon and those fires that are, so we realize that climate change, we realize that as a community we do need to increase our canopy to reduce that carbon dioxide footprint, but we need to really ensure that our residents are engaged and that they have more or less a bit of a say. So what is your plan?
Yeah, so right now our plan is we're working with your city management staff and public works to be able to identify kind of like all the factors and the parameters, right? Okay, where are there vacancies for trees? So we are mapping. Us as tree people, we're taking it upon ourselves to literally map about 4,000 open spaces. That's the first step, is identifying where we can plant. We are providing material to residents on, that we're here assessing your area and you're going to potentially get a tree. We're going to also be working with the city to be able to develop a public education campaign with some of your staff. We have a team, and Eileen, you can take that on.
Yeah, so actually, as coordinator, currently work with 3 other, well, there's another image of that, but our engagement process involves door knocking. We are working together to outreach for the local communities and have block meetings. And currently, we do have successful volunteer events where we do bring together the community. And in the process of planting, we also make ourselves available to answer questions from the residents. And usually by engaging them and offering them the information, they usually become more aware of the benefits of having a tree, and they understand, yeah.
Now,
So-
will there be, again, as we talk about our urban forest management plan, are there going to be a few options of trees that residents can choose from as they think about, whether they want a tree in their yard and the type of tree they want?
So right now we have these tree species designated for the city of Downey. However, it is based on the city's decision as to which trees will be planted on the parkways.
So going back to Councilman Formente's question, though, so what happens if a resident says, no, I don't want it on my, I don't have a parkway, traditional parkway in front of my house, and they say, no, I don't want a tree from my house. And then what? Do we send the tree police to force them?
Oh, hopefully not. Yeah, we don't have the resources for those.
So what do you do?
So what we're doing is we try to convince them, right? We leave literature, we leave material. Someone says no. We're really, we're taking it upon you, the city, and your decision is really to say everyone who's designated to get a tree is getting it. Our job is to execute that order from y'all. And we try to mitigate that by really providing as much literature, education, have block community meetings, engage residents in the actual planting. We have people that once they start seeing the trees, people will say no. We plant all over the region. Once they see the tree plantings, then they want one. So there's some of that, but we really are taking orders from the directives from the city and this decision of what tree is going to go where.
Mr. Mayor, if I may. A couple of things. First of all, thank you for the work you do. It's important work. And please don't take any of this as anything other than questions for the community. But I think where we're at right now is that, first of all, when we have trees planted in a particular neighborhood, ultimately, if you have a tree canopy or you have tree aesthetics, what you don't want is necessarily you have a blooming tree, you have a deciduous tree, you have one that drops leaves, or you have some that you don't. So what you get down the street is basically looks like somebody punched out their teeth, right? In and out, in and out. So you don't want that. But I think what we ultimately want to do is to decide where the trees would go, right? And what neighborhoods they go. So I know that you have, by January, is that a hard fixed date that you have to have them in by January?
It is for the larger project completion, yeah. Because we have to complete the project, and then we need to, or the planting, and then we have 24 months after we plant, 24 months to do tree care. So January is kind of our hard deadline.
Okay, so assuming that it can't be moved, I think that one of the things that would be incumbent upon us is to take a pause for a moment, take a look at where exactly it is that you're going to be planting those trees, offer suggestions in terms of the neighborhoods. For example, if it's the council's wishes not to have trees in neighborhoods that don't have sidewalks, then that's something that we can certainly steer them in the right direction for. Mm-hmm. And so, but I think ultimately, what you all want to see is kind of a map of where all these things are going to go, and you want to see that, and we're also working on a master plan, right?
Yes.
So we're going to be doing some of that as well.
Did you say map, council member?
Yeah, so we have first of all, not a council member, but
City manager.
so I know you have a map up here, but I'm talking about having a more detailed discussion about where they're at. So I appreciate that you have that, but I'll let you continue with your presentation. But I think, keep that in your back of your mind that we're going to need to take a moment to take a look at that in more detail before we move forward with additional tree planting.
Well, and if I can say one more thing, is we, our job, and again, for those that are streaming live, our job is to really ensure that we're asking the right questions, and also that we are making those decisions that our residents want in terms of what beautification of our neighborhoods, but also keeping in mind some of the concerns that they may have. And so again, to your point, Mr. Manager, and as well as looking at the overall plan and making sure that it makes sense and make sure that it all aligns so that we provide that information to our residents.
Agreed. Yes. We have about. Go ahead.
Sean?
Yeah, so two things, and I'll try to make it quick. So you say you take care of the trees for 24 months. What does that entail by taking care of that?
Yeah, that entails watering the tree weekly, making sure that it survives. So that's watering, that's pulling any weeds that may come or anything intrusive that will come into the immediate area of it. Adjusting the stakes so that it's able to grow and form properly. If there's any trimming towards the later end that needs to be done. Tying, there's ties that usually go with it. So it's all that adjustment, all that bit of attention that it needs very early on for it to establish itself. Once it establishes itself, gets roots down deep enough, that tree is very likely to kind of
Take off from then, yeah. Okay, so then I'll go on to my second question, I think. So we've been kind of talking about, well, what if they don't want? What if a resident says they want more than one? Would we be able to plant, like, if they wanted one in their backyard, would you guys be able to facilitate that as well, to put them in places other than on the city right away?
For this contract and project specifically, it's just right of way and it's in the parks. And we do have about 200 trees that are going to be up for adoption. So residents that want some in their backyard, they will certainly have those available for.
So there's an option for that.
Exactly,
That's
yeah.
perfect.
And one
Thank
more-
you.
Thank you.
Can we get the mayor's choice of a tree for the month?
One more
Like the
question.
dog?
Funny. One more question. In regards to, I think one of the concerns that we've heard also, and again, it's pertinent to bring it up here right now, is residents feel that with regards to trees, there are trees that are very, very beautiful, but over time, over the next 15 or 20 years, and we look at longevity and we look at residents that are here for very many years, there are concerns of roots that could potentially cause damage to their plumbing and in their main, and so that then becomes another factor because the resident may say, yeah, that's a great idea, and I'm all for the environment, but if at the end of the day, 10 years from now, this is going to really cost my pocketbook, then that's a problem. Are those trees that have been selected trees that regarding that are not massive roots?
Absolutely. I'm very confident in saying that we have very experienced certified arborists that have done their research, and we are ensuring that those roots are not going to uplift sidewalks, damage piping. These trees were selected exactly for parkways, specific to the parkway size.
Okay, Carlos, you want to continue so we can get done before midnight?
We're going to move from south. That's the current mapping. Just there's over 3,000 trees there. The one on the left is the where we've currently done 464 plantings. Let's see, all right. The clicker stopped working. Yeah, I think that's about it. Any other project details, we're in constant communication with your staff. So there it is, the project timeline. We hope to finish by 2020. Community engagement is going to be a huge factor into that. We just got three team members that are joining the team with Eileen to come out starting next week and begin to formulate strategies to engage your residents. This is our team, so that you're familiar with them. We have Miguel, Kobe, Caesar, Eileen, and then they're the community engagement team on the periphery, and in the center is the folks that you may see day to day, which they're working Monday through Friday from like 6 to 2. And they're the ones that are planting and doing the high productivity.
Great.
All right.
Thank you, Carlos.
When the shovel is bigger than you, your smile is bigger. This is a picture from one of our community events. I just saw it today and I thought it was beautiful. So.
That's cute. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos.
I did want to mention something really briefly. I want to thank you for the presentation. I understand trees are beautiful. More of a community engagement, talk to the residents, only because I've received, I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I've received a couple of complaints from residents who all of a sudden see a tree in their front yard and they don't want a tree. And so we've received numerous complaints about that. But there's other individuals that want a tree and they don't have a tree. So I'd also like to see if maybe we could see maybe a detailed map, and most importantly, more in community engagement, so that way the residents are informed.
Absolutely.
But I truly appreciate everything that you're doing, and I thank you for being here and providing the presentation.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
So, Mr. City Manager, is this something like your office is gonna?
So what I'm going to do is, Ed. So if I'll have Ed communicate with the tree people, see if we can get a more detailed mapping of where they're going to be planning, and then offer some suggestions, and then maybe bring that back for this for council consideration. Does that work?
I think it's perfect.
I think also that the outreach needs to be simultaneous or previous to the actual digging the hole. I think that's the problem.
And marking the street. I
That's
think
right.
people got along with the marking of the street without getting that education component out.
That's right.
Okay, so we'll have Public Works reach out to them, to Carlos.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys.
It's now time for non-agenda public comment. Before we begin non-agenda public comment period, I'd like to remind members of the audience of the city meeting rules contained in the Downey Municipal Code. Members of the audience who wish to address city council during the non-agenda public comment are prohibited from engaging any conduct that disrupts or interferes with the meeting, such as yelling, screaming, cheering, or whistling. If a speaker engages in conduct that disrupts or interferes with the meeting, I will ask the city manager to have the speaker removed from the chambers until the end of non-agenda public comment period. I remind speakers that each person has 5 minutes to speak on a non-agenda items, and that your comments must be addressed to me and not to any other councilor or staff member. Please state your name for the record. Those wishing to now come forward.
Hello, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I have a couple things that I would like to bring up. A lot of it has to do with the parking. Is that better?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It is to do with the parking on city streets. Like on my street, we have 3 or 4 houses that have like 6 to 7 cars, and they are parked all over the street, not just in front of their house, but also in front of everybody else's house on the street. So there's no parking for visitors or anything like that. I don't know if there's anything we can do about that, but it's just something that I wanted to bring up.
Sure. So I'm sorry, your name is?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's David Lindstrom.
So David, what street are we referring to?
Mostly off of Adori and Downey Avenue. Well, that was, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself.
Okay.
It's on Adori Street.
Okay.
Between Paramount Boulevard and Downey Avenue.
So, we can't tell people how many cars they can own, and I know that, but at the same time, things have changed. I'm sure you've lived here for a long time, just like I have. Things have changed now. Used to be a time where people would rent a 2-bedroom apartment and you'd have, a mom and dad, maybe 2 kids. Well, now you have mom and dad and 4 or 5 kids, each of them drive. And so that's just the time we're living in. We have had some modifications when it comes to parking. If it's endangering, the right-of-way or the traffic or, pedestrians, we can paint the curbs and this and that. But in this situation, it's strictly parking. So, I guess maybe, Chief, if you want to have somebody speak with them offline in regards to the parking on Adori.
Yes, sir.
So,
Okay, also, what I got ahead of myself about was on Adori and Downey Avenue, we have, in a lot of the streets, we have cars that park all the way up to the end of the block. And if you go out and you say you need to make a left-hand turn onto Downey Avenue, you have to go almost 3/4 of the way into the lane before you can see if cars are coming. And if we could paint maybe 50 feet before the streets, that would give us a better shot to seeing cars when they start coming and prevent accidents.
right. Now, that's a public safety issue. I'm sure the chief and you also have Public Works here are also going to talk about that. If it's endangering, people that making turns and preventing people from visibility issues, then that's a public safety issue. So yes, absolutely, we're happy to talk to you.
Okay, great.
All right, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you. Yes, sir. Step up. State your name,
Good evening, Mayor.
sir.
My name is Ralph Diaz. I am a corporal with the City of Downey Police Department. I'm also the POA president. I'm currently off duty. I'm here just to thank the City of Downey, the members of council, also Mr. Livas and our Chief Milligan, the recent purchase of the Bearcat, which is now a tool of a necessity. If it's ever needed, we now have it. Based on the events across the country, it's a tool that I hope that we never have to deploy. However, should we deploy it, now we know that our officers will be safe, and as well as the citizens of Downey. And again, on behalf of the POA members, men and women who serve the city, we thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor,
Ma'am, good
City
evening.
Council. Let me say I've come here as a concerned parent, citizen, taxpayer, activist. My address to you may seem non-conventional, but bear with me. As recently as 2 days ago, the Democratic Party voted down climate change debate. Let me repeat that. They voted down climate change debate. No room for discussion. We know this is a crisis across the world. This is a non-debatable subject. No one should disagree with this, and I'm sure you don't. I'd like to read an excerpt from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. 9 of the 10 hottest Julys have occurred since 2005, with the last 5 years ranking as the 5 hottest. Last month was also the 43rd consecutive July and the 415th consecutive month with above average global temperatures. It was the hottest year to date for parts of North and South America, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, the southern half of Africa, Western Pacific Ocean, Western Indian Ocean, and the Atlantic Ocean. I'm here tonight to ask City Council to make a concerted effort and implement the Green New Deal. Through decision-making when sourcing, purchasing, bidding, contracting, in every decision, Downey should practice a green transition, a program that will convert the old gray economy into a new sustainable economy that is environmentally sound, economically viable, and socially responsible. I recently attended a school board meeting. at the school board meeting, they were giving kudos and awards and recognizing, I'm not sure if it was an elementary or a middle school, for the elimination of plastic straws. I mean, that's great. They're starting young. Our youth are engaged. And here we are discussing things that have no room for discussion. They're no-brainers. But the irony of this was, while I was there at the school board meeting, and they were giving these awards for the elimination of the straws, the school board was sitting there with Nestle plastic bottles across their counters. All of them. Shame on them. Please do not be like surrounding cities that ignore the Green New Deal. Be ambitious. Set the bar. Let's put Downey on the map. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Next.
Good evening, Mayor Rodriguez,
Sir.
City Council, Mr. Levis, Chief Milligan. My name is Mark McDaniel. I'm a captain with the Downey Police Department, but today I'm representing the men and women of the Downey Police Management Association. I'm off duty, but it was important that Ralph, Corporal Diaz, and I, and our members, thank you for what you did during your last council session. It means the world to us, not only to us, but our families. You made our job safer. That's just the bottom line. You made this community safer by that vote. We understand the expenditure. Is a significant one, so it doesn't go unnoticed. We thank you. You allowed us to be more efficient, effective, and safe, and that means world to our association and our membership. So thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, community. My name is Edna Ibarra. I am a parent of Downey School District children. I am a teacher in the South Bay and a long-time Downey resident. I wasn't going to speak to this, but since the police department is giving all these kudos about machinery and being safe, I want to ask what the city is doing to support immigrants and ICE raids here in Downey. Concerning the islands, speaking of the islands built on Paramount, I live near the Paramount Florence intersection, and I was never canvassed or surveyed whether I wanted an island or not. I live on Basinger, and nobody ever came or asked or called. I don't like the idea of the island. It's causing disruption in the business, and it is also affecting the already saturated traffic on Reeves. Reeves is saturated and also has a lot of speeding. My daughter attends Rio Hondo, and when I drive by there, I notice all those cars, and I don't see police force around. Mayor Rick, you used to be involved around the Basinger Street group that canvassed for you with Steven Gonzalez, who's my neighbor.
Steve Dominguez?
Yes, Dominguez, sorry, Dr. Steve Dominguez.
I'm still involved with the Basinger
Yes.
residents.
Yes. I haven't seen you, but I would like you to return to our street and notice all the cracked pebbles on the concrete. When we drive into our street, which is a dead end, you can hear the pebbles hit the cars. What are you doing about that? All the construction going around in Downey, you're all clapping and congratulating each other, but what about the Downey residents? I mean, the traffic is more horrendous. I don't agree with all the shutting down on most of the the parks, because a lot of our low-income residents need parks to get away, need parks for recreation, need parks to get out of the heat. And now people are stuck in their apartments. I don't like that the library is closed also. My kids could not participate in the summer library programs. They did not participate in the Furman Park summer activities because they're closed. It seems like everything is closed around the city. Think about the low-income people that also reside here. It's not about just the wealthy. It also affects the baseball teams. My son is a baseball pitcher in Little League, and now his park is being moved. All this construction is ridiculous. There's construction everywhere you see. Also, the Sussman debacle that I see with the middle school becoming a high school, and in order to improve numbers, I don't think that this is going to attract enough student population to pay back all the millions that are poured into that project. Kids do not want to attend a third school. They either want to go to Warren or they want to go to
Ma'am,
Downey
that's
High.
a Downey Unified School District issue, not a city issue.
Well, I'm talking about it now
I
because
understand
I'm
that,
a resident.
but you're addressing the city council with
Yes.
a Unified School District issue.
Well, I did at the board and I'm doing it again.
Okay.
Also, the DL program, moving teachers around. This is at the expense of taxpayer money, of me, of the middle class, taking the brunt or taking the hit, and the affluent class not being affected. Also, Mayor, the question whether you live in Downey or not is still out there amongst the.
I live at 7207 Rio Flora.
Okay.
I welcome you to join me any day.
All
I'm
right.
out there having coffee on the golf course.
Well,
Join me in the morning. I get up at 5:30 in the morning.
I'm not bougie that way. That's why I'm a
I
teacher.
am. That's where I live. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your comments. God bless you. Next.
Hi, everybody. First time here, so I'm a little bit late to the party, especially with consideration of the recent purchase of the armored vehicle. I don't agree with it, and the reason I'm saying that is because I believe those funds should be used for prevention. And what I mean by that is outreach. Basically, we kind of see the history of how this happens, these shootings, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but there's a way to kind of respond to it, because what we're doing with the armored vehicle is kind of reacting to it. You can't, there is a way to prevent it, so. I'm a bit nervous, so apologies on that. So, yeah, that's my opinion, but I can see why it's necessity in some ways for our police peacekeeping forces, so to speak. So, yeah, late on that, but I guess it's all good. Aside from that, I think I support the tree people. I think we should move forward completely. Agreed, because a cleaner environment does create like a better upbringing for the children and stuff. So yeah, and the future. Yeah, that's for sure. So yeah, I don't know. No chance of rescinding the armored vehicle, is there?
No.
I was late, so it's all good. So I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the community.
So you can
My
lift-
name
yeah,
is
you lift
Caesar,
the mic. Yeah.
and I'm concerned because I went into your City of Downey website and it was so difficult to find the agenda. I wonder how a disabled person must feel trying to search your website and it's so complicated. So it makes me wonder, like, what are you guys hiding? Why is it so difficult to find the agenda? In terms of the city, the islands, why are you guys creating islands? It's creating so much traffic. You know, I hope you guys are not giving money to your contractor friends. It's very ironic that there's a concern, and some people were not surveyed about making the islands residents of City of Downey, but somehow people are bothered because we're planting trees. That seems incoherent. It seems to me that because of the climate change situation, the Arctic ice melted. So that's going to create issues for our planet. And, you know, you guys are talking about, what's the cost to support the individuals that want to plant trees in our community? How are we going to make a city of Downey residents aware? Excuse me. And I think that it needs to be addressed in a sense of urgency. We cannot continue residing in the city of Downey or anywhere else if there's not an increase in trees. I support the scientific community and I support facts. And to deny trees, and because residents are complaining, oh, there's a tree in my house. Like, honestly, you guys need to cut the BS and start implementing trees immediately, because that's the only way we're gonna solve climate change. You know, City of Downey, you guys have so many car dealers that are gasoline powered. You guys should tax them. Tax the gasoline automobile industry out of Downey and bring renewable energy to the City of Downey. It's crazy. You know, kids are playing out in the sun. There's UVA, which causes aging, and UVB that causes burning. And so things are gonna get worse for our kids. We need to implement like a Green New Deal. And, you know, that's my concern. You know, you guys are concerned, because somebody's complaining about a tree in their house. It's your obligation to inform the community about what's going on. As the previous person said, the Democratic Party, they basically don't want to have a Green New Deal debate, a debate about climate change. We've been talking about climate change since I was in the 2nd grade. That's like 25 years ago. And we're still back at this. You know, there's meetings, you know, I think Cristina Garcia, you know, there's a meeting with her and all of a sudden she's getting all this fame and all this support because she's doing something about the community. Exite has been there for years. And so that's my main concern. You guys need to get on the ball. You guys need to become a model city. You know, we're all gonna suffer. And for the person that said how are brown and communities of color affected by the climate change, I think that you need to, you know, if you're on the city council, whether you're the city manager, you're the attorney, you know, I think you need to educate yourself before you ask such a ridiculous questions. How, of course, people of poverty are going to be the most affected. Oh, and by the way, some of you may know me, but for those that don't, and even though I'm not in this district, I am running against Elena Gonzalez. I am a Green Party candidate, and I am running against Elena Gonzalez, who took money from fossil fuels, money from the same companies that have been polluting our planet. So I'm here to declare war on the political trash that's been in office for so many years. They pacify every issue. They say, oh, we're working on this, we're working on that, you know. The things can just be solved in a snap of a finger. We just need to get the right people in office. Once again, my name is Cesar Flores, and I'm running against Lena Garcia 2020. Thank you.
Levantemos el corazón. In the spirit of how this meeting was opened, with a prayer and in the name of Jesus Christ, I want to speak in that spirit about some serious issues and the priorities of this distinguished board. Martin Luther King said that a budget is a moral document. It just shows very clearly where our heart is. So I'm going to talk about some things that are a little bit scattered, but there is a connection at the end of this. I think that to even question the need to have more trees, it already shows the problem that we have in not understanding the urgency, the catastrophic situation that humanity faces. It sounds crazy. It sounds like a Hollywood film. But any decent scientist that studies climate change, everybody's sounding the alarm. If we don't put an immediate stop to our habits that depend so much on fossil fuel, it's not just the animals, it's not just the trees, it's humanity itself that's on the brink of destruction. And we keep taking money from these people, and we keep minimizing the problem that we have. It's great to show concern for animals, for dogs in cages, but we have children in cages. We have families separated. A lot of people have the impression that Downey, it's like the Mexican Beverly Hills. People have the impression that Downey is this affluent society where only people that are here to make these ridiculous mansions in the middle of middle-class neighborhoods. But there's a significant sector of working class and poor people that work or inhabit Downey. And a large portion of those people are undocumented. They are our brethren. So if we're going to show concern like Jesus Christ for people and for animals, I think we should begin, or at least put an equal footing human beings. And I think if you're going to begin praying, evoking the spirit of Jesus Christ, then we should begin by addressing the plight of our undocumented brethren and undocumented community. And Downey should take a serious stance on the issue of children in cages and become a sanctuary city. And we should demand a very clear policy from the police department as a strict no cooperation with ICE. And the other thing is that we're talking about trees. We need to be honest. Thou shalt not lie is one of the commandments. There's many ways to lie. We just need to be straight that people don't want to ruin the property value of their mansions, and some trees decrease value. So it's not a question whether trees are good or not, it's a question of property. We define safety in terms of property. Most police duties it involves the protection of property, but we got to protect people. And right next door in the city of Paramount, there's factories by rich Democrats, some of them like Carlton Forge. Warren Buffett owns that company, and it's poisoning the air, chromium-6. As children are sitting here talking and getting applause and certificates, and people talking about, going away from plastic straws, we're breathing chromium. Chromium doesn't respect the boundaries, the jurisdictions. It doesn't respect whether you have a badge. It doesn't respect whether you have a nice suit or whether you have a fancy watch. It doesn't care. It kills everybody. So we need to start concerning ourselves with the fact that we have in the air this poison that all our children and ourselves are breathing. And we have to take a stand on this and stop just acting as if the role of a city council is just to self-congratulate itself and make it seem like everything is just a nice day at the park with all this laughter. There's so much harmony and laughter between you guys that 5 council people almost seems superfluous. If everybody's going to be in agreement and so nice to each other, we might as well just save money and have one of you speak for everybody. So the question with the buildings is not, just what gets built. The question is who builds it, who gets the contract, and we should have transparency and see whether, like the LACU and organizations like that are waiting to build more construction. And I will show up at your house for the Canelo fight, so have the tecatas ready.
Enjoy. Thanks, sir.
Good evening, Mayor.
Sir.
My name is Rodolfo Cortez Barragan. First I would like to point out some great things that I see here. This is my first time speaking at Downey City Hall. I think it's great that people are given 5 minutes to speak. In other cities and school boards, it's 3 minutes oftentimes.
Yeah,
So that's very nice to see. It's also very nice to see that anyone can just come up to the podium at this time, because in other cities, again, you have to get there at a certain time, and that actually really limits the involvement of, I think, many people, especially working class people that perhaps are driving very far away. Okay, so those are great things that I just see right off the bat. So again, Mayor, since you asked that the speakers address you directly, I want to address what you said, some of the things that you said in your initial opening statement, because I think that these things are actually, once you think about them, they're contradictions in how, I know that you're trying, your best to have, a functioning city where, people are happy to live there and children can grow up safely. But so, and, I don't know if you, recognize, but of course we've met before. We met on the ballot last time. But of course, given your extraordinarily complimentary statements towards our Congresswoman, Mrs. Lucille Roybal Allard, I doubt you voted for me. But thankfully, 8,518 people did.
So that's you, or I forget who you are. Yeah, okay, now,
Yes, so
now
I want to address, you said that you were recently, today, that you were with Mrs. Roybal Allard at something to do with child poverty and with veterans. So I actually grew up in Downey, not very far from here, and we were a very poor family, poor immigrant family. And I am honestly disturbed that 20 years later, Mrs. Roybal Allard and many other Democrats, yes, in the Congress, Nancy Pelosi, who actually considers Mrs. Roybal, I think, a very close personal friend. Mrs. Roybal gets the best committee assignments, the ones that decide on the national budget, the Appropriations Committee. So I think it is outrageous that in all this time and all of this discussion and highlighting by the Democratic Party that they want to solve the issue of child poverty, which many in the community, myself, have experienced, and yet it's not solved yet. Is what's stopping it? There was nothing stopping Mrs. Roybal Allard from pushing the rest of the Democratic caucus to vote to hand President Trump almost $800 billion in funding for the Department of Defense. And since you mentioned veterans, almost, there's barely an increase for veteran pay or troop pay or family support. It's essentially all going to these corporations that are creating the tanks and the fighter jets and the nuclear weapons, and that's just obscene. It's obscene on multiple levels. It's obscene just considering, we have so many issues that are pressing right here. We have the trees that we need to plant. We need solar panels. We need food for children. I can't believe that there are going to be children that are going to bed hungry tonight right here in Downey, probably not very far from here. You can walk probably 1 minute and you'll find a family that's under that situation. So I think, Mayor, I'm not sure how long you've been here, but if you've been here since as long as I've, since when I was a child, just growing up around the corner, I think it's time for you to decide, hey, I'm going to actually stand up for the community. I can't just keep going to these symbolic events with Mrs. Roybal Allard and, taking the pictures when maybe some nurses with children and moms. That's just symbolism. That's not substance. We need these issues to be solved. And it's not going to be solved by playing nice with these higher level officials that are creating the problems by not addressing them. I will end with a great quote from one U.S. President, President Eisenhower. And I think too many people have forgotten this quote. Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies in the final sense a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. The world in arms is not spending money alone. It is spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children. Thank you.
So, Mr. Berrigan, before you leave, Mr. Berrigan, please return to the mic. I have something I want to say to you. So I understand your concerns, and I'm thankful that you come to the mic and feel empowered to address me the way you did. So let me tell you, I put 60 to 80 hours a week in this job, and I am doing something. I'm making sure kids graduate, I'm making sure they're employed, I'm making sure they have options. Whether it be college, career, military, but I'm making sure our city is safe. I'm making sure our children have a better opportunity than I had. I know what it's like to grow up poor, but I also know what it's like to make a dollar. So I thank you for your opinion, but I also remind you, you can't make accusations of me until you know me. You really don't know me. So thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. And again, my spirit is just to hope. My hope is that we work, you and the rest of the council members work with the upper level officials to deliver on these promises, because the community really needs them. Thank you.
Yes, sir. God bless you. Thank you. Next speaker, please. Next speaker, please.
So let me tie in Thomas Jefferson and quote, "We have nothing to fear from the demoralizing reasoning of some, if others are left free to demonstrate their errors, and especially when the law stands ready to punish the first criminal act produced by the false reasoning. These are safer corrections than the conscience of a judge. I've been through that hell. I'm telling you. Tyrannies of government. Advocacy of law breaking heightens is still further. But even advocacy violations, however, reprehensible and immoral is not justification for denying free speech, where the advocacy falls short of incitement or a potential threat. There is nothing to indicate that the advocacy would immediately act on the action. Armando Herman, second TRO by the City of Los Angeles in retaliatory action for my big mouth. Now, any of you don't have a big mouth because you're afraid of government. Tonight, I see your proactive change. You have gotten strength by my conduct. You are here speaking as citizens, stakeholders, and hopefully not bad actors. But down in LA today, as I stood before the man who pointed me out of my TRO, I talked about Sanchez Salvador, who, as they put it, begged the officer not to shoot my son. I begged the officer not to shoot my daughter. Mental health, schizophrenia, a 32-year-old man with mental health before hundreds of people in a Costco. Shame on you. Shame on you, Roybal Allard. Shame on you, Nancy Pelosi, and the dirtbags all from Sacramento who want to see a bullet to my head. And what better news? You kill a canine? Poor Ozzy. Who in the hell locks their dog up in a car? I'm afraid to leave my dog alone. But she trusts me as much as I trust her. Because we got a connection in life. And we're gonna fight for every inch in life to see life get better. As far as my district, I told my councilwoman a year ago, trim the goddamn trees. They haven't been trimmed. They haven't been pruned. So why plant more trees if you're taking our dollars from our home to add new work to the city manager who can barely handle his job? Everyone complain about the poor idea of all this construction, how it interferes and impacts the quality of our life. And you're not upset? I heard someone upset. I don't sound upset. I'm usually loud. Matter of fact, I brought for you guys 414 US 105 1973, number 735290 for the record. I brought another case regarding Whitney versus California, 274 US 357 1927. You hear that? It's an outcry. But in regards to what one gentleman from Pasadena said regarding his name, Bagdasarian, number 0950529 2011, First Amendment, United States versus Bagdasarian, regarding Obama, FK the N. He will have a 50 cal in the head soon. All I said, if I could put a gun to Eric Garcetti's head, I probably could, but I wouldn't. That would be foolish, because the man already ruined his reputation of dumping homeless people into Downey, Norwalk, Cerritos, Pasadena, and now we have the problem. Fix it. Stop being an oxymoron and do your jobs, as you heard the public speak out.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Noting no further speakers, non-general public comment is now closed. Are there any council members who would like to remove and abstain from the item on consent calendar?
Move to approve the balance.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, can I, public comment? Is there any comments from the public on the consent calendar items?
God bless America.
Yes, sir.
God bless America.
Thank you.
We've created new jobs called sidewalk vending programs.
We got a notice.
But how does it affect those who have established a business for 20 or 40 years? And they have to pay on their taxes. They have to pay on their overhead. Is it fair? Don't get me wrong. You have to be creative to survive in California nowadays. $2,000 a month rent. Your children living at home till they're 30. More than 3 families living in a 2-bedroom home. Is that safe? And what is SB 946? Another Sacramento BS. And that, regarding the $2 million and not less a proof of liability insurance, is something we have to think about. People can be injured. People can be burned. People can fall into the street. So where are we with this? $100 for the first penalty, $250 for the second penalty, $500 for the third, and then $1,000 penalty. And this falls all under section 6545.1 regarding sales. Really, there's got to be a better way for minimum wage. The Democrats promised you $15 an hour of the year 2020 to come. We're going to notice, as we have already noticed, businesses beginning to shut their doors, less jobs, more people in the street, no opportunity to be creative anymore because the struggle is only going to distinguish between the poor and the rich. And so, how we look at this provision of code establishment, we need to look at it even further. And I invite all from Downey to go to Alvarado Park. Take the train, a matter of fact. It's a safe train. You'll have a great experience with your children there. And when you get up there to Alvarado Park from the red line, you will witness what Eric Garcetti, the mayor, has created in an area so blighted, so ridiculous.
Is this a consent calendar we're talking about?
Yes, sir. I'm on item 8.
Okay, okay.
I'm giving an example of a sidewalk vending program.
Okay, I was just trying to bring it back to Downey. Thank you.
We're glad you're focused.
Thank you.
I try to be.
Thank you.
I really do. Especially being downtown for 10 hours, talking to people who don't really understand what their local government's doing to them. Local government. It's horrible. It's more depressing than going back home and drinking a cold beer and wondering what's going to happen tomorrow. I believe government's short 1 beer of a 6-pack and they think they got a good deal. but they're panhandling us to be their slaves. They're building a militia to keep us in jails. Let's build more jails. County Board of Supervisors talked about that. People selling stuff on the sidewalk, well, just add them to the problem. Take them to jail. They don't have a permit. Well, we can't afford a permit. Well, why not? Because this is the only job I have. I'm hustling. It's not prostitution. I mean, it could be, if you call it that. But it's just a statement. If it could be prostitution, it should be taxed. But it's not. It's people trying to survive. And I really wish some of you had a heart to look at the people that are struggling today in society and see if you really want to meet a challenge. It's true what they said earlier. All these photo ops with Roybal Allard and Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein. Nothing but a broken record. So if I had a recording of, I would have let it go.
Thank you, Mr. Herman.
Second.
No need, but okay. So we didn't vote on the consent calendar, right?
Yep.
Motion second. Please, we have Sean's first, and he's second. Please vote.
The consent calendar was approved with Councilmember Saab abstaining from item number 1, the minutes of August 13.
Okay. City Manager Livas, any comments?
Mr. Mayor, I do. There was a lot said tonight. A lot of people come up, and unfortunately, they don't also have all the facts. So just a couple of things. One, first of all, the tree people here today, and we're clarifying where those trees should go. Nobody's saying that they shouldn't go. In fact, it was this council that voted to have a tree master plan and become a tree city. So I think that shows where the council is on that particular issue. As far as the medians on Paramount, we have medians throughout the city. You had a couple residents come up today talking about Florence and some areas that become pretty dangerous. Those become pretty dangerous because there's no medians there. Medians save lives. And I will also remind folks that those medians also are green and they replace whole swaths of hot pavement and they will have trees. So those are things that accomplish two things. They provide safety and they provide some greenery on what would otherwise be a pretty desolate strip of asphalt. As far as cracks on streets and this council over the last 5 years has committed more money on streets than the previous probably 15 years prior to that. We've done about $15 million annually on streets, more than we've ever done ever before. And I think Mr. Ashton, you ran on streets as well as a big deal, and we're actually doing a lot more streets as well because of that. Our parks. Are there some inconveniences in our parks? Absolutely. But we're also responding to residents' concerns about the conditions of the parks and how they've been. So there is going to be some short-term discomfort for long-term gain. We're essentially responding to residents' concerns about having a park plan that makes sense. And you're talking about a community that essentially is park deprived, and we're investing millions of dollars in our parks to make sure that we do that. In addition to providing some new green space down in the South Rancho Park area. Somebody also commented about our website. Our website is actually under reconstruction. It should be launched here pretty soon. We have 2 council members on a subcommittee that's tackling that. We actually have a green energy plan. We actually have reduced our carbon footprint in that particular area. We've done a number of things that have reduced the amount of energy that we use. In fact, we won an award from Southern California Edison from last year because we've reduced our carbon footprint. So we are doing those things, and the fact that this council is harmonious is an advantage. Not a disadvantage, folks. I've had the opportunity to work in a lot of different cities, and I couldn't be prouder of the council members that I work with that are here today, they get along. That means we get things done, and the council gets things done, and they set the policy. So many of the things that were brought up today we're actually working on and we're doing, and I think you're going to see the results. Yes, our library is closed, but guess what? It's going to be a 21st century library with a makerspace, with ability that those kids will be able to dream about things and do things that no other library can do. We are teaming up with our Columbia Memorial Space Center, and they will be cross-trained in order to provide those kids with the abilities to do the things that are required in the STEM field in the future. So I know many of those folks left, but those are things. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, to take so much time, but I just couldn't sit here, and the work that you guys do on a daily basis is amazing, so thank you.
And you forgot to say that, you forgot to say hashtag I really do live in Downey, but that's that story will never die. Golly.
You're getting nullified, is that what I?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, that guy shows up at my house, there'll be a fight, that's for sure. All right. So.
I didn't say that.
That's all right, I would. I did. And I meant it. Anyways, adjournment tonight. The meeting is now adjourned in memory of Army Specialist Clayton J. Horn, 23 of Atlanta, Louisiana, who is supporting Operation Inherent Resolve. Please, a moment of silence. Meeting adjourned.